Fun fact before starting this video, I actually recorded this with Pancreas No Work many months ago, all the way back when 10th edition wasn't a thing, and he was below 100,000 subscribers, so as such, the information is a little bit outdated. What's taken so long, you might ask? I simply forgot that this was on my computer.
Well, you got me there. But why do we need him?
This job gets very stressful, Mr. Krabs.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Live at the Black Library for the second time, because the audio crashed actually just like 4 seconds ago. So, we must pray to the machine spirit, everybody. We take a moment to pray.
No kidding.
Hands up, everyone. Mega church. Listen to Mega church style.
Pray to the Omnissiah that my computer doesn't brick again.
You know what? You've done something to the machine spirit. The machine spirit sees your search history and just says, no, none of this. I can't take it anymore.
He was not a fan of the last video I made, so he told me it's just shitting itself.
So, as I'm sure many of you have guessed, I am very lucky to have on today, Pancreas No Work.
Indeed. It is, me, Funny Warhammer Man. We're retreading a bit, but for the sake of you not being aware of that, in terms of you don't have the audio that exploded, I am Pancreas No. I'm repeating myself now for the third time. I make do or don't on Warhammer for tabletop armies to know if you should or should not use them. I make some lore every now and then. Sometimes I decide I don't want to look at Warhammer for a bit, so it's Halo or BattleTech time. But for the most part, yeah, I make Warhammer lore videos of whatever the hell is on my mind at the moment.
Great to have you on the show.
Pleasure is mine.
You at the time of recording, you have almost 90,000 subscribers. You're probably gonna hit like 100,000, maybe like I think probably in maybe January of next year. I think.
I was gonna say I'm thinking and hoping January. That'd be cool.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you've been putting in the work on like certain parts of your body, which are not really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. My brain is putting in at least 50% capacity. My pancreas, not so much.
Oh, not a team player.
Mm-mm.
You know what? There's, I'm trying to remember some of the jokes. Fuck!
Oh, man.
This one's not as good!
This is the worst part of it. We're lost the fucking humor of it. Fuck!
Yeah! Damn it! I do really like you. You're a good humored guy about the whole thing. I do really like the username Pancreas No Work. I could just show up in your fucking cubicle. I would show up in your fucking cubicle at an office job. So how's it going? Pancreas or hardly working?
Hey man, it's both of us are hardly working. So me and my pancreas are putting in the effort required to get by.
There's nothing quite like the bare minimum, believe me.
It's what I say. Good enough is good enough.
That is something I've said before. I'm like, there's good and then there's good enough. I strive to be good enough.
Yep. Well, by definition, good enough is good enough.
That aside, why don't you tell the folks at home, how is it you really got into Warhammer in general?
But of course, so as I said,
I already know, but like,
as the audience will now hear for the first time. Oh God, thank you, computer. Anyways, stay on focus, Colin, for the love of God. As it wasn't 40k that got me into it. It was fantasy. I read some end times lore without knowing anything about it. I just went, this sounds cool as hell. Whatever images in my brain I was coming up with, they were sick. And then I didn't get into it because I knew Games Workshop would steal all of my money. And then a friend upgraded his computer, and with his graphics card, he got a free copy of the first Total Warhammer game, so I was intrigued by that, and he offered to send it to me since he does not care for strategy games, and I love Total War. So I was like, yeah, I'll give this a shot. I was at first a little bit iffy about it, because I was always the Rome Total War. I liked my history game, and Warhammer is fantasy, not history. But it turns out I shouldn't have been worried, because I fucking love that game. And it just kind of went from there. I was looking for fantasy models. The ones I wanted no longer existed because end times explode Warhammer fantasy. But there was still plenty of 40k to go around in Age of Sigmar, so I was still able to get into the setting that way. Settings.
That's one thing, I think some people, I myself until recently didn't know, was the difference between Sigmar and fantasy. Like, it's like sort of a kind of a reboot, but also kind of, an extension in a way.
Yeah, it's, definitely more sequel than reboot, though it's, because fantasy was selling less than paint, and individual armies, for that matter, in 40k were outselling all of fantasy. They had to change something. Now, unfortunately, people still like the setting a lot, so blowing it up did not go over so well with a lot of people, but at least as far as the tabletop setting goes, Age of Sigmar's definitely given them what they wanted. It's definitely outperforming old fantasy. Which is a shame, because I love Karl Franz and all of my old fantasy characters, but Games Workshop's a business, as sad as it is to say. Money comes first for them.
But I think it's something we, the people, become painfully aware of.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, it is. I think the biggest legacy, though, of fantasy is, like, Gotrek and Felix. They've made the transition over to Sigmar. Felix finally got on with that transition. Good for him.
Wait, hang on.
We're proud of him.
Are you telling me new lore that I don't know? Felix is... You better not be fucking with me.
He isn't. He's in Sigmar. Like, he's a Sigmarine now. Like, he's one of the... I think one of the... He's one of the Stormcast, I think. I
don't know if they explicitly confirmed it, but, I mean, he was a goddamn hero. If anyone qualifies for it, he'd be a Stormcast. But I think there was actually a moment in one of the newer, in the Gotrek Age of Sigmar books, where he realizes, like, someone he was friends with and then died, he realized they were back as a Sigmarine, but because you lose your memories in the process of becoming one, Gotrek realized that even if Felix is back, he would remember nothing about their old journeys.
Aww,
so even if he is back, as far as he goes as a character, Felix wouldn't be back.
Yeah, he's been wiped.
It's very sad. Although Gotrek did, there was a moment where he chewed someone out, because someone, I think another dwarf, or Duarden, as they say, because fucking copyright.
Duarden.
Yeah, was telling Gotrek, like, what is so special about this guy that you obsess over finding him? And Gotrek fucking blew up on him, like, you don't even get to say his fucking name.
Oh.
Like, I think he said like, he said something along the lines of, there's not a single Stormcast worth polishing his armor, let alone being able to be half as good as he is. So if nothing else, Gotrek remembers him. Games Workshop might not, but Gotrek does.
Oh, yeah. Pepperidge Farm remembers. And that's ironic. Felix is the one that died, and not Gotrek.
I know it is, because Gotrek's whole thing is how badly he wants to fucking die.
Hey, you know what, man? Same. I feel that.
If we're on the topic, I'd like to give my spicy Warhammer opinion on something.
The floor is yours.
I think Gotrek could take on any Primarch and win.
Maybe. You know what? Maybe.
You simply cannot kill Gotrek. If something gets into melee range of him, that thing no longer exists.
He's gonna die. Like, a lot, the Primarchs are known to lose here and there, but Gotrek is something else.
Gotrek is known to, in the end, not.
It's not about combat skill, it's about the vibe. It's on vibes, that's what it is.
Gotrek's vibe is, I don't care how badly he wants to die, we're not letting him.
No. He can't die.
Ugh.
It's like a really fucked up Goku.
Except Goku dies all the time. Gotrek can't even do that.
That's good. Good point. Goku does die.
But, yeah, that's how I ended up in the Warhammer world.
It's, very interesting. You made your appearance into the Warhammer world in a very obfuscated way, but you've made a big impact. Much like the topic of today's video, the Eldar Harlequins.
Woo!
Me, of all people. Well, I wish. I'm a very boring man. The whole thing with Eldar Harlequins, they're literally just theater kids. Like, that's it. And as someone who was in theater throughout all of, like, elementary school, and even in high school, yeah, I completely understand. Like, the whole vibe of how these characters function, both narratively speaking and like in just lore in general, yeah, it's completely accurate to just the theater kid bullshit. Really, it is. I remember the first role I got. I was in like I think it was in kindergarten. I was playing Kurt in The Sound of Music. I had like one line where I don't even think it was an actual play. I think it was an older student's project that a bunch of kindergartners got roped into. I would just stand up in front of a line and say, "I am Kurt and I know everything," and like that was all I remember saying.
There was the first time when I went to high school, I was touring my high school with some friends, just like some freshman orientation thing. Whatever the theater group was doing, like whatever play they were performing, was apparently set in World War II.
Oh, God.
And I didn't see the play, but the reason I know that is because apparently my high school has a very good prop department, because we were walking down the halls, and then I'm not making this up, some kid in a very accurate, I must say, Wehrmacht officer's uniform comes walking down the hallway. So we look at each other like, what the fuck school is this? Because he's like, it was full out like the straight like swastika, black armor, cap, and everything, and I was like, oh my god, what is this school?
Like a full member of the SS.
Yeah, it was. They didn't let us know that was gonna be happening. We were just walking down the hall like, oh, this is the east part, the east building, whatever. Hello, Nazi officer, how are you today?
Oh god. I have a similar story, and I don't want to sound like a dick, but I think it's a better one. I don't want to sound like a dick, but I am. And this is one of those stories that if you know me personally, you've heard this story. Like, we all have a few stories that, like, we tell at every given opportunity. This is one of mine. And I'm always happy to repeat it, especially for the show. In high school, our production was actually a mime production of all things. It was the whole thing was done in mime. But our hippie-ass teacher, like... This woman was a hardcore hippie. Like, she would wear the floral dresses and, like, have, like, shit in her hair. This was a private school. I went to fucking private school. I paid to be here, and then this hippie-ass lady was the one teaching.
She would have definitely been at Woodstock.
Yeah, exactly. This is the kind of person who would have probably, like... I feel like, you either would have been at Woodstock or would have been in the Manson cult. She was actually, like, married to one of the history teachers.
Oh, hi.
Nobody liked them. She wanted this play to have meaning, you know? It couldn't just be a mime show. We're just like, oh, it's just we're just a bunch of silly guys, you know? Silly mimes. We're just around, you know, with the makeup and all that. No, this play had to have meaning. You know what the meaning? Civil rights. It was a civil rights play about mimes. Namely, the mimes... we were racist. Imagine you're a teacher, and you see a mime, you're like, you know what that guy needs? Some racism.
He needs to be racist. That's what
he needs to be racist. That's what that needs. Should I have just been chanting, like, you know, face paint and soil, face paint and soil?
Jesus.
What? And soil.
What?
It gets so much worse. Yeah, sorry, you were saying?
I was to say, like, alright, you know, make a play about civil rights. That's not... you know, that's not a bad idea. Why does it need to be mimes? Why does the mime play need to be about racism?
You know who we were being racist against?
Oh boy, who?
Clowns. So, like, a couple of the students played clowns instead of mimes, and they would run around on stage. We were all doing our mime thing, and they would just run around on stage with, like, horns and shit, going... just making noises, while all of us were being silent, and we were just being racist to them.
What?
It's like... imagine, like... I love it when people do this. They see, like, a group that gets depicted as bad, and then they assume it's some civil rights allegory. Like, oh, you're a fucking loud nonsense clown? Like a black person? Is that what you are? Like, what? It's like, lady, that's not... it's not as insightful as you think it is. And it gets so much worse, because we had a scene... I was the bad guy. I was always typed... this is the thing. Every play I was in, I was almost always played as a bad guy. And this is something I said in my previous episode with the Remembrancer. I've been told numerous occasions I have bad guy vibes. Even in real life, people meet me and they say, you have a vibe about you. You seem kind of evil. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. I think that's, you know, women tend to like me. I'm the kind of guy who gets asked out by women. So, like, maybe that's part of the reason is I seem like there's something wrong with me.
Damn, you want to share some of that?
You want some of my bad vibes? Next, Jesus Christ, I give you my bad vibes. Next, you'll be trying to get my insulin. I know how it is with you fucking people.
Amen.
You want an inch, you're gonna take a mile.
I'm not saying I will. I'm just saying that if you have any to offer, you know, I'm buying. I'm buying. I need my fix.
I'm gonna like barge into your room and throw away I'm gonna rip the needle out of your hand, throw it away. I'm like, you're better than this, man. You don't need that. It's just in your mind while you're like.
Yeah, we'll have this nice, touching, emotional moment, and then three days later, I'm found dead on the floor from insulin. I can't even say withdrawal. It's just not having insulin because I need. That's a biological necessity.
He just died because his body couldn't sustain function.
Yeah,
it's not withdrawal.
There'll be nice, happy music playing, and then cut to my funeral.
It's like the ending of a really shitty indie movie. Where did I go wrong? I lost a friend. It's like you killed him. You killed this man. He's dead.
It's like, what do you mean, where did you go wrong? You took his fucking insulin from him. You know where you went wrong.
Wrong. But like, more about that little play. I know I'm cutting into the actual episode time, but this is a story people I think need to hear.
I'm enjoying it.
It wasn't just that the clowns were the oppressed group. It was the way it was presented was just so bonkers. There was a scene where we were all miming being on a bus. Okay, first off, scene one of this fucking play, is two mimes go to the hospital because the girl mime is in the process of birth. She's having a child.
How old again was this?
11th grade, and I'm in my 8th year of university at the time of recording this. So, like, 9 years ago, it was like 2013 or something. I think it was 2012. I remember because that was the year of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I remember that was the year of the apocalypse.
Yeah, I remember the world ended.
Yeah, I wish. Fuck. The world should have ended with this. This would have been a really good closer to humanity, was this play.
Hey, man.
Like,
all I'm saying is... Oh.
Sorry, she was giving birth, and the baby came out as a clown. Like, why? This is a high school play, and the first scene is clown cuckoldry.
Yeah.
And then the dad gets depicted as a bad guy for storming off in a rage, while the mother's left crying and alone. We're like, you're acting as if the baby was just, like, randomly born a clown, but then you do everything in your power to depict it as some kind of racial trait. Like, there's no, like, it didn't track. Like, it just seemed, like, reasonable on his end. And funny thing, like, I was telling this story to some people that I no longer associate with, and one guy, what he said was, he's like, well, I mean, if that's the reason, I can't imagine it's wrong to be racist to clowns, because they actually were trying to replace the mimes, so I actually understand it. I'm like,
oh boy.
I'm just thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in this discussion anymore. This is going to a place.
He's putting something down, and I do not want to be a part of it.
Something, man. It's like, man, what are you cooking? Something's cooking here. Pull up.
Whatever's cooking, I'm not interested in tasting it.
God. But, and then, like, we had a scene where all the mimes were on a bus, and then a clown walked on, and then me, being the bad guy, the way I was dressed, everyone had normal mime makeup, and mine was done up to look like a skull. I had a skull, everyone was either socks or barefoot, but I had hunting boots on, camo hunting boots, and a long green coat, and a black and white military cap, and skull face paint. And I realized later, like, I was talking to some friends, I realized later, like, we were actually in a bar after graduation, it was one of the few times I've ever been to a bar, is a little bar called the Imperial in Toronto, and I said to my friends, I'm like, hey, you remember that play? They're like, yeah, I remember that play, that was fucked up. I'm like, was I a Nazi? And then everyone just stopped and realized, like, holy shit, you were an actual Nazi. You were a Nazi. Like, you had a Nazi in your play, I was a Nazi mime. A mime Nazi. God damn.
What an interesting creative choice to make. Nazi mimes.
That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it plays out. Like, yeah. Why would you put that? It's like, a clown walked onto the bus, and I forced her to the back of the bus. Like, and she was trying to resist me, but it's like, it was like Rosa Parks, but a clown, and the bad guys won. And they put that in the play. In the end, it was there was also Mimeo and Clowniette, like an interracial couple, and I had to put the kibosh on that. You know, can't have that. Can't have that. No.
What? What is this fucking play?
The ending scene of this play was a riot. Like, the clowns got together and started protesting, and me and a bunch of mime paramilitaries, like a fucking Volkssturm of mimes, just attacked them, and I ended up stabbing a little, like, we just got the shortest student we had, stabbing a little clown girl, and she died. But then she ascended. She rose up and ascended with wings. And she was supposed to give a rousing speech, which was basically just a beat-for-beat retread of Martin Luther King's speech. Basically, except about clowns, and saying, I have a dream where little clown boys and little mime girls can live together in harmony. And it was the only line in the whole play. Just a bastardized version of Dr. King's
Because
speech.
most of them are mimes, so no one's talking.
No one was talking. The only other lines were just sounds. And then she fucked that up. She forgot her line, stood up there, mumbled for 3 seconds, and then just screeched, "Clown rights!" as loud as she could. And that's how the play ended.
What a beautiful piece of theater that will go down as one of history's greatest.
Truly the magnum opus. Truly. Well, the one good thing about that play is that it did start my interest in miming, and I do actually intend to one day move to Germany. And I've actually been scoping out what mime schools are good. I do actually intend to become an actual mime.
Just don't go as a Nazi mime, or they might take issue with that one. I don't think that one would go down so well with the German crowd. Or,
Yeah,
or any crowd, for that matter.
Yeah, that might not go well. I might need to the character might need a rebranding. Might need a more family-friendly rebranding.
Yeah.
Ugh, another classic character destroyed by the woke audiences. Ugh,
Yeah.
every time.
They're taking our Nazi mimes.
God, what's next? But getting mercifully back on topic after that debacle. The whole thing with the Eldar Harlequins is they have this air about them of being this really old, like old-timey sage-like faction. They're really not. They're actually a relatively newer faction in 40k. They only really started to make their appearance around, like, right before the fall of the Eldar, where they just decided to show up, like true theater kids decided, we're really important. We're gonna remind everyone of what the culture, their heritage they're throwing away. So they started performing, like, the histories of the Eldar through their performances and dances. And the audience hated it. They immediately had to learn combat because the audience just started attacking them en masse. And I mean, to be fair, ancient theater actually was like that. Like, if you fucked up badly enough in ancient Greek theater, your life was in danger. Because you would be, like, angering the gods or some shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, it's, you're not just fucking up your stage performance, you're offending
Zeus
the gods.
sexually assaults
like
people
Apollo
that he
or Zeus.
likes. Like, what's he gonna fucking do
no
to you
one wants that.
if you make him look like an idiot on stage? Oh my god.
Well, in this totally original joke you've never heard before, not ever. It's like I said, he probably just turns you into a turtle and then
going
assaults
straight
you.
up his ass, if I'm being honest. Yeah, that guy was a freak. But there's a bit of a discrepancy when it comes to the Harlequin lore, because it's stated that they retreated into the webway right before the fall and then stayed in there to practice their combat skills and their performance art and all that. You know, that's what you do when you get a bad review as a theater kid. You just lock yourself in your room for an extended period of time. But they made their first real appearance. It says in the Eldar Harlequin 8th edition codex that they made their first appearance around M33. That's recent, but there's a problem with that. The War of the Beast took place in M32. Like, it's like, I think it was like 500 years before. But Harlequins play a role in the War of the Beast. Like, a bunch of them show up in the Imperial Palace.
That's when they just start murdering custodes, right?
People consider that one of the stupidest parts of the lore, because if you read the section, this one Harlequin Shadowseer, through her perspective, she just barrels through dozens of custodes and starts slaughtering them wholesale. No effort. And people just think I think it is bad writing, it's just really stupid. But I think the in-canon explanation is that right before the War of the Beast, the Imperium had hit a really lax state. A lot of the old and prestigious institutions were sort of full of people who were not really up to code. Like the Lucifer Blacks, they weren't as good as they used to have been. I think it was the same thing with Custodes. Like, a lot of those Custodes were not up to the same level of training they would have been back during the days of the Emperor. because so many of them had died in the war in the Webway, and right at the end of the heresy, so many of them had died. So these guys were kind of just rushed in to fill the numbers. Just like, these guys were just bench warmer custodies. But still, like, it was a stupid piece of writing. So there's a contradiction there. The 8th edition codex is newer. It's like a few years newer than the book that the Harlequins show up in, which is Throne World, in the War of the Beast series. So I think we do need to go with, I think we should acquiesce to the newer lore. Basically meaning so for all of you, don't worry, that section of the lore where a Shadow Seer just butchers a bunch of custodies is more or less retconned. It's retconned.
I prefer to go with the explanation of fuck you, people are allowed to be better than humanity in 40k.
You see, that's the thing with you. You're a big Eldar simp, and honestly, I am too. You and I have a lot. You and I have a lot in common with the Eldar in our own rights. I'm a clinical narcissist, and you're slowly dying. So, except
Indeed.
Neither of us get laid. We're both Warhammer YouTubers.
We're just like the Eldar.
Nah. Aw. Wah, wah. The Harlequins have a really interesting organization. They are organized into these things called masks, where each mask has its own sort of shtick, or like its own gimmick. They're kind of like chapters unto themselves. Like, there's ones like the Silent Shroud, which fight quietly. Ones called the Frozen Stars, which are known for being pretty fucking cruel. And some that are known for focusing on Necrons, this and that. But in recent lore, the masks have sort of been overshadowed by these things called the Sadoths. The Sadoths are sort of like, could be considered alignments. There's 3 of them. There's Light, and masks that follow the Sadoth of Light are known for being much more sort of heroic and daring. There's the Sadoth of Dark, which is known for being much more cruel and sinister. And then Twilight, which is sort of the middle-of-the-road one, which nobody likes. And true to form, in the tabletop, because in the tabletop, you pick one of 3 Sadoths to actually play from, and that determines the traits you get going into battle. The Twilight is known as the meme one. It's known as the not very good one.
Now, of course. No credit in lore or tabletop.
Well, the thing is, they're really good in tabletop, actually, right now. The Harlequins, they're one of, like, the strongest with the highest win rates in tabletop, meaning that when 10th edition rolls around, they're gonna get nerfed into the floor. On one hand, the Harlequins are one of my favorite things about 40k, so that does suck to see your favorite faction get shit-stomped. On the other hand, eat shit, meta-humpers. All of you people just blowing money on Harlequin armies at the last second, yeah, good luck.
Because, they're suddenly meta, so, oh no, I've always loved the Harlequins, I promise, I love them. Yeah, alright, buddy. I remember the last time I was playing tabletop at a Games Workshop store. At the table next to us, it was Harlequins versus someone, don't remember, I think Necrons. And the bullshit he pulled, I was like, you can do that? What do you mean you can do that? Or it's like, yeah, I don't remember exactly what he did, which, not great. But I know, like, even someone who, like me, who's not, doesn't play tabletop too often, like for Do or Don't, I research it, so I at least think I know what I'm talking about. But I don't play too often, and I haven't played Harlequins yet, so I haven't looked into them as much, the rules yet. And even with knowing, like, very little about Harlequin rules and all that, I was like, that is busted as shit what you just did right there.
Yeah, like, there's a whole thing, they're, like, super hard to hit or pin down, from what I know, and that must be a big pain in the ass to deal with.
Yeah.
When it comes to the lore, the thing was with Harlequins in the lore, like, narratively speaking, they get used very sparingly, and I think that's a good thing. Like, it's really hard to write a story about Harlequins, because the way they speak is so over-the-top and thespian. It's like, wouldst thou be so pithy as to forsoothedly attacketh thine foes in the name of the laughing god, whoso watcheth us unto our steps and dance. It's exhausting to...
Not something you want to read a whole book about someone making fun of Shakespeare.
No, no. Like, so that's the thing, it's like they're used... There's a reason for that, though, is because in the lore, when you become a Harlequin, your previous identity sort of erodes and disappears, and then your troop master gives you a new role to play, which have names like the Sun Prince or the Webway Witch or whatever, which apparently they mean something. Remember, kids, there's no small roles, but you sort of lose your identity to the role you're playing. And again, yeah, as a theater kid, yeah,
That it's just like that. People will start acting like their characters outside of rehearsals, and me who plays a villain, I never bought into that. So I still have the mime Nazi costume in my basement. I'm waiting for the day. I'm waiting for the uprising.
Is what he's saying. But if you go to his basement, there are several bodies down there.
I'm waiting. The last battalion is upon us. Oh god.
Oh.
Well, it's a good thing this channel isn't
no.
monetized yet. I don't have that kind of fucking pull. I'm not gonna bullshit.
Oh Christ! Get away with it while you can before that bug creeps in your ear that goes, "Oh, I'm gonna get demonetized if I say this." Get away with it while you can.
Get it out of my fucking system.
Yeah, get it out of your system before it becomes something you need to think about.
Another thing I played was the Shadow of a School Shooter. Like, we had a whole play called Bang Bang You're Dead. I required the script for that This was the same teacher as the mime Nazi thing. I required the script illegally. I found the script on a website where you had to pay for the password. You had to pay the writer for the password. I just used one of those brute force password busting softwares to illegally get the script. We actually never ended up putting on the play because nobody showed up to rehearsals, which sucked because I was hyped to play the Shadow of a School Shooter. The kid who was leading me in that play, the kid who played the school shooter himself, I was supposed to just be dressed like him, except in all black, just whispering evil things in his ear and convincing him to shoot up his school. We were gonna perform this in a fucking high school. I have no idea what she was thinking.
Oh, they'd never let that perform in America because they just give some kid ideas.
I mean, it's Canada. I think we could get away with it. But like, he always got better roles than me. He always got the leading good guy roles, and then I always had to play the antagonist, and he was the kind of person who's a dick about it. But then again, he actually attended professional acting classes. Like, he actually does stuff now. He was better than me, but it doesn't mean I can't be bitter about it because he was an ass. Doesn't
matter how good you are. If you're a prick, you're still a prick.
Speaking of being pricks, the Harlequins are actual bastards. There are a few instances of them narratively, them showing up just to fuck with people and just to be a pain in the ass. Well, like, there's a few things that are the go-to narrative sources for hardcore Harlequin fans. Mm-hmm. Like myself and a few other people. It's just like me and like 5 other people. There's a short story called The Mask of Vile, which deals with Harlequins essentially investigating how a full craft world died. Like, they stumble across a dead craft world just floating in space.
They're like, what the hell happened to this thing?
It turns out Drukhari raided the thing and killed everybody and stole all their, like, soul stones and sold all of them in slavery. So it's mostly a Drukhari story, but through the lens of Harlequins. It's really interesting and really good.
I'll have to check that out.
Oh yeah. It's by Andy Chambers, I think it's him. I have a full copy of it on my computer. I could just send that to you. I just copy-pasted the whole thing into a Word document.
Please do.
Yeah, I don't want anyone giving GW money where you don't have to. You don't have to do that. But, I can also get you for free. There's 2 audio dramas called The Heirs of the Laughing God, which deal with Harlequins essentially bantering back and forth as they butcher their way through hordes of... In one of them, it's orcs, and in another one, it's, Astra Militarum. It's really good because you can see how, like, goofy and over-the-top these characters are while doing really horrific, like, fucked up things.
And they're still being 40k characters where it's absolutely horrendous, but that's just the setting, so no one's acknowledging it.
Yeah, basically. Harlequins, they're divided into several groups, or several different roles that you can play, which do come up in the Heirs of the Laughing God short stories. There is the Troop Master, who usually plays Kegarok himself in his performances of the Eldar's heritage, such as the Story of the Fall. There is the Shadow Seers, who usually play Isha, and then you get some other high-ranking troopers who play people like Cain or Vol or Asurian, and all those Eldar gods that none of us really care about. The only Eldar god anyone cares about is Cain. That's because of the Avatar.
Yeah, because he's getting his ass kicked by any named character.
Yeah, I've never seen an Avatar of Cain do anything worthwhile, I'm being honest.
Oh, rest in piss, Cain.
Rip. So there's Shadow Seers, which serve as the hardcore hallucinogenic psychers. There are Troop Masters, who serve as the leaders. Well, nominally, everyone's in charge, because remember, there's no small roles, but, you know, bullshit. There's very clearly a leader here. Like, come on. I'm a theater kid, I know how it works.
Indeed.
And there's also Mimes, which are sort of like Scout Marines, but for Harlequins. Their whole thing is they never speak. Like, you just stay completely quiet. and one of the main instances of a mime in a story is one being brutally tortured in a very semi-erotic scene by Ozzy Arman and his acolytes. Courtesy of C.S. Gatto and his Eldar torture fetish. Gatto and your multi-lasers.
Thank you, Godo. Very cool.
Did you know Eldar Harlequins have multi-lasers? Can we get that in canon?
Fucking everyone has multi-lasers. The universe is nothing but multi-lasers. That was the Emperor's greatest invention.
And the Emperor killed Horus with a multi-laser. Did you know?
Yeah. Horus couldn't quick draw his multi-laser fast enough. That's why the Emperor won the duel.
Just generally speaking, it's the big thing with Harlequins is they just sort of show up here and there. Like, there's the book Lucas the Trickster. A Harlequin shows up there. Like, some Harlequins show up to aid during the fall of Cadia by helping escort, like, Cadians into the webway to save a sizable amount of them. Not that many.
As many as are still alive after the planet started cracking like an egg.
Yeah. Like, they save a bunch of them, ushering them into the webway, and I only found this out yesterday because I was watching your episode about Fabius Bile in your podcast Lore Crimes with Deadlist for the Dark Gods, the Remembrancer, and the Amber King. You were talking about Fabius Bile, and there's this one Harlequin who just keeps following Fabius around and giving him shit for some reason. She herself is a Shadow Seer, and all I can think is, when I'm hearing about this, she gives him a map to Camorra, and then, like, special artifacts and shit, and tells him all this stuff. I'm just like, he's not gonna fuck you. Like, you're clearly simping out of your mind. He's not. Like, she offers up her Clussy to this guy on a fucking Wraithbone platter, and Fabius Bile just ignores her and sells her to Trazen for, like, a bag of chips. Can this man be any more based?
To be fair, giving someone directions to Camorra is a great way to indirectly get them killed.
Well, a few Emperor's children have been to Camorra. Lucius the Eternal was there as a prize fighter, but he got bored because nobody could beat him.
But of course, the Space Marines must always win in the books they're in.
Oh, well. What else could possibly happen?
No, the favorite child must never be shown faltering. The Space Marines must always win. Fuck you, everyone else.
Fuck you, the entire Eldar race.
Ugh. I guess I was to say about I do like that they're used sparingly, though, because it makes them still seem special. Like, when a Harlequin shows up, you're like, oh, shit's going down. Like, something actually serious is here.
Like, I think the direct equivalent would be, like, the Custodies of the Eldar world. Like, they're super elite, and they have elites among their elites. Like, Death Jesters are known as some of the most dangerous of the Harlequins because they represent death itself. They go into battle wearing this badass, like, skull mask, and they use, like, the closest thing Eldar have to, like, Harlequins have to heavy weapons. And they just start blowing holes in the crowd and killing people in the most comedic ways and creative ways they can see fit. Like, they'll wait until you think you're about to reach cover and then shoot a rocket at you right as the doors are closing because that's hilarious to them.
You turn back around and get jump scared by a rocket launcher.
Rocket launcher jump scare.
I imagine one of them just screaming, "Hey, vibe check!" right before it hits them.
Vibe check.
And if you live, if you somehow live, you pass the vibe check, and the Death Jester stops fucking with you. And if you don't, well, then he doesn't need to worry about you anymore.
There's an instance in Heirs of the Laughing God where a Death Jester, she blows up a guy with her shuriken cannon. Their shuriken cannons are their shurikens are tipped with poison that cause your body to just, like, either, like, deteriorate from the inside or just blow up. Like, your body will violently react. Like, she aims it in such a way that a piece of bone flies off and blinds the driver of a vehicle, like, stabs him in the eyes and blinds him, causing the vehicle to crash into a bunch of other troopers. And the other Harlequins just go nuts because that's hilarious.
See, that's how I know I would be a bad Harlequin, because I would never be able to think of something like that. Every single shot, it would just be like, cock shot, cock shot, cock shot.
I thought you were about to make a joke about the fact that you can barely see. I couldn't make that shot. I don't have the precision. No, cock.
No, I'm assuming I, at least in this scenario, this never happening scenario, I have the abilities of one. It's just like my comedic timing would be like, yeah, no, it's too repetitive. Pancreas, what would the Harlequin name be? I have no idea. Pancreas Harlequin, you got to stop going for this.
Pancreas.
Pancreas. Yeah, there we go. Like,
Pancreas, let's go.
You gotta stop reusing material, and be like, no, the cock shot's too funny.
It's a classic.
Exactly.
Arguably one of the most famous and most important units in the Harlequin arsenal is the Solitaire. They play the role of Slaanesh himself, or herself, or themself, or whatever Slaanesh is these days.
I say she because the Eldar call her she who thirsts, and it's just
but
that's just what I think.
Yeah,
now.
but I got used to hearing Prince of Pleasure though, so it's a little up in the air.
Fair enough.
The Solitaires, they essentially give up their soul, like you essentially damn yourself to play a Solitaire, and as such, none of the other Harlequins want to like associate. In the lore on paper, it says that Solitaires are so feared. If another Eldar or Harlequin even touches a Solitaire, oftentimes they'll prefer to just kill themselves on the spot. Like, it's like fucking like full-blown low-tier god. Like, you accidentally touch it the wrong way, you should kill yourself now!
Now!
In actual story, like in the Mask of Vile, the mask just treats the Solitaire that hangs around them with like tacit annoyance. Like, his name is Motley. Motley the Solitaire, and he shows up and they're like, ugh, this dick again. This
Motley's back.
This asshole's back. Like, they even basically tell him, like, Motley, this is why we don't hang out with you. You're such a pain in the ass. I mean, aren't you supposed to be, like, reverent and afraid of this guy in the lore?
He's that guy in the friend group no one actually likes, but he keeps making his way back around.
It's like eventually you all realize, like, why is he even here? I thought you knew him. And you realize he just...
I don't know about you, but I have a very specific image in mind for that person.
Yeah, whatever you're thinking, yes, that's exactly it.
I would say, not naming names, but I am, the image is crystal clear in my mind, like nothing else ever has been.
Ooh. We had a guy like that in high school. We called him Lonely Justin. Because he was...
Oh, rest in piss, Justin. Rest in piss with K.
We told a female student about him once. Like, oh yeah, Lonely Justin's there. He never had any friends because he eventually left. And then she's like, what the fuck? She's like, I would have been his friend. We're like, why? So if he comes back to butcher the entire school, you're not a target? And she looks at us. She's like, yes. Like, no shame or hesitation. Yes.
You gotta look out for yourself.
If that means making peace with Lonely Justin, it has to be done. It has to be done.
She gets the "don't come to school tomorrow" text.
Yeah, that was basically her angle. Dark jokes in this episode. Fuck.
Quite dark.
I feel like I should have been better prepared for this one. I wasn't able to find my fucking notes.
No worries, man. If you've seen any of my videos, I am about as prepared as... Like I said earlier, good enough is good enough.
It's mostly just the shtick. You can't do much with them as characters because they're not really characters unto themselves. They're just sort of this blank identity. And yeah, they seem interesting on paper, but it would get old quick. They're like Grey Knights more than anything, or like Custodes. But I think that's really cool. Like, a lot of them actually bum around in Kimura because they're allowed to go wherever. Some people say that, like, Imperial officials tolerate Harlequins being around, but that's mostly because you can't really do anything about it.
I was to say, between the webway and just all of their psycho, like, BS, like, by the time you catch them, it's like they've been gone for a year. It's like, you're a bit late to that one, Chief.
They know that. Like, they will sneak up to Imperial commanders and just, like, steal their hats and shit just to fuck with them. Or shoot someone when they're in the middle of the rousing speech.
And then throw a cream pie at someone and book it.
It's just like, haha, and just, like, wiggle away.
I think it's kind of, in a way, like, it's a shame they don't lend themselves to stories from their own perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But it does make them really good for the setting. They're not great as characters, but they're great as part of the setting. They make it feel richer.
Yeah, like the flavor more than
yeah,
anything.
like they're great for the atmosphere, for the background, for the the fluff of the setting.
Yeah.
Like, sure, you're not gonna get Caiaphas Cain Harlequin, but they're really good to just like fluff up the stories.
Yeah.
Great side characters.
Basically, like that's the role they serve. Like in the Fabius Bile books, in the Path of the Dark Eldar books, that Solitaire Motley shows up here and there. In Lucas the Trickster, they show up. The only, like, I think there's a short story called Faces. It's like a really short one. But the only real things you have in terms of Harlequin, like pure Harlequin content, are the Heirs of the Laughing God. It's 2 audio dramas, which I highly recommend. Just Google Heirs of the Laughing God free. You can find them free online to listen to. Don't give GW money. You don't have to do that. And I have a document with the whole with the entirety of the Mask of Vile. So there's that too. There is sort of a big overarching thing with Harlequins. Well, one, like all Eldar, they do fuck with other people. Like, there's an instance of that same Eldar, that same Shadowseer, who, I think her name's Veilwalker, who...
Salandri Veilwalker.
Yeah, Salandri Veilwalker. Fabius Bow's #1 simp. Like, she actually, there was an instance where she essentially manipulated, one way or another, or directed events to make sure that a Freeblade Knight would end up fighting an Orc Wog, and basically, essentially, yeah, soloing, with his brothers, who now hated him because he was on the run, a Freeblade Knight fighting back an Orc Wog all by themselves and sort of regaining their honor. And the reason she did that was to stop them from invading an Exodite world. So, like, again, that's the thing with Harlequins. You can't trust them. Much like Theater Kids, you can't trust them. They're always up to some shit. Like,
the best you can give them is, if they're not actively harming you, it's only because it'll benefit them in the long run.
That, or they think you're amusing.
Or that. The clowns do like a good joke, after all.
Don't worry, I know these Harlequins are coming to kill us, but I have a really good knock-knock joke.
Ah, then you'll be good.
There's actually a Harlequin, you and I actually talked about this before we started recording, how fucked up Ian Watson's books are. There's a guy who became a Harlequin. He's just a guy. Like, it's in the Inquisition War series, that fucked up mess. There's a guy called the Harlequin Man. He just saw the Eldar Harlequins and said, yeah, that, I want to do that. And he's essentially part of the Illuminati. I'll get more into that if I ever do, an Inquisition, like, when I ever get to the Inquisition episode, and talk about the Illuminatus and the Ordo Hydra. But they're involved in a lot of really deep affairs. Like, whenever you see Harlequin show up, you know pretty substantially that something big is going on. That's the measure of a conspiracy. Like, you see, like, if I ever see a clown in real life, that's always my first thought. Like, there's a fucking conspiracy afoot here. Something's up.
Going on.
Something's up here. Something ain't right. But the overarching thing is, I really should have touched on this sooner in the episode, is how the main function of the Harlequins is that they are a few of the only people who have like a full sum total knowledge, or a very high level of knowledge, of the Eldar Webway. Which means that's part of the reason they can just show up anywhere at any time, fuck around, and then leave without having to find out.
Because they know all the escape routes perfectly.
Like, they know every trapdoor on the stage. But in the Black Library, which it keeps happening that, like, they lock people in the Black Library, or they invite people to the Black Library, and then they end up stealing something, and then they're surprised every time. So they're not as smart as they look. Like, they invite someone, and then something gets stolen, they're like, oh, fuck. It keeps happening. But...
Gosh. Now we gotta deal with this.
There's, the Book of the Ranadandra is it's like the big thing in the Black Library that they are set most to guard, which is essentially their tome of the end times. Where it's a book bound in chains of light, supposedly written by Kegarok himself, and as the ages have worn on, the chains have slowly been disappearing and vanishing and, like, dematerializing. And now the book has finally opened in the era Indomitus, and essentially it details how Kegarok is going to trick Slaanesh into expending all of her energy to end up saving the Eldar as opposed to destroying them. It's like, hey man, if you can spin that, go for it, but I don't think GW will let you. GW's not gonna let that happen.
Probably not, but I would love to see it. Kegarok's final prank. Just a prank, bro.
You remember those YouTube prank channels that would always end up in really fucked up situations? It's just
try and defend themselves by saying it was just a prank, bro. Or I know I just pissed
That's basically
on you,
the
but it was just a prank.
They just do something really fucked up. It is for the humor of the event, sir. Fuck you.
Except by the time someone calls them out on their bullshit, they've been gone. YouTube prank channels if they had zero accountability.
Oh god.
Which would be
I
fucking
think some
terrifying.
of those I think one guy got shot. Like, yeah.
He did. I think his last words were legitimately, it was just a prank. Just one of the saddest things I've ever heard.
I love that. That's great.
Ugh. It's the darkest comedy. You can't even write that shit.
Jesus. Like, it's the thing with Eldar Harlequins, they fall into a trap called the conservation of ninjutsu, which is a narrative trope in which it's really fucking up in the air how strong they are. Like, if one appears, now's a good time to feel really threatened. But if a bunch of them appear, you can kind of be faithful that not a lot's gonna happen. Like, Eldrad Ulthran got jumped by a whole squad of them, and he just wiped them the fuck out. Like, if a whole bunch of them appear, they're probably not gonna do much. They're kind of like, they're like custodies in that way. If a whole bunch of custodies show up, okay, whatever. But if one custodian shows up, oh fuck.
Everyone in a 10-mile radius
is now immortal.
Straight to hell.
It's fucked. It's absolutely like that. That's the problem with them. It's really inconsistent what they do or how important they could be. But it's always a treat when they show up. And whenever I find out, oh, Harlequin show up in this book, immediately I'm like, I gotta read that.
Now I want that book.
Yeah, that's the Fabius Bile series, like a Manflayer and Clone Lord, and Progenitor have entered my to-read list, my ever-expanding list of things to read that I know I'm never gonna fucking finish. Like, I'm done kidding myself at this point. I'm done bullshitting myself.
It's a list of things I'm going to pretend I will read it one day.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of just a thing with GW in general. Especially because Warhammer's, it's like, obviously also a tabletop game. So whenever Games Workshop does that thing, like, you know, they would do it, the conservation of ninjutsu, when someone gets their ass kicked, they very clearly shouldn't have.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I have the rule book right here, that's not how that would happen.
Yeah.
See also everything the Avatar of Cain has been in ever.
Yeah, basically. Another crucial piece of lore here is how one actually goes about becoming a Harlequin. You know, they're not like me, where I've had to sit around and scope out mime colleges in Germany. You get kidnapped. You essentially get kidnapped by a bunch of clowns. Like,
honk honk.
You basically, you just hear you'll just be in a crowd, and then you'll just hear like an ominous honking and be lured towards it, and then you'll just vanish. And the next thing you know, your identity has been stripped from you, and now you just perform whatever role is needed of you. There's also, like, no one is born as a Harlequin, that's what it says. So, like, you either get lured away, or you go to seek them out, or you get swept up in one of their performances and just vanish, or you hear, like, an ominous laughing from a webway portal and are just drawn to it. Like, you hear the call of Kegarok. Like, you don't just apply to them.
Mm-hmm. No. You get called to your career, as it were.
Yeah. Finally, my big break is here. It's just like a bunch of... You just hear laughing.
And if it's happy nature, you know, if it's, you know, good nature laughing, you'll be a good Harlequin. If it's very mocking evil laughter, you're probably not going to last very long.
Funnily enough, there's actually one mask. I think it's what they do. It's like, I think it's the mask of the it's like the Veiled Path or something, or like the Twisted Path. It's something, one of those fucked up names they have. Where what they do, one of the path, the mask of the pathing path. It's like the litany of litany's litany. Where what they do is they actually lure away members of other races to serve as their auxiliaries. So you will see humans, Tau, or even fucking orcs with their equipment painted in the colors of the mask, being used as cannon fodder by Eldar Harlequins.
I'd love to imagine some orc in a clown outfit going, this Kegarok guy's the best. That was much more Texan than Cockney orc. Alright, these orcs are Texan.
We crump for Kegarok now, boys.
Exactly.
It's just with the fucking wig on. And and the shoes. Just charging into battle.
Yeah, he doesn't say wah, he yells honk, like they yell wah.
That would be the most intimidating thing ever. Holy fuck.
Honk! And then some 8-foot-tall green muscle machine is coming to beat the shit out of you.
It's the last thing you see. Before you get sent to the fucking Emperor.
Yeah. It's personally by that order.
You're ready to meet the fucking Emperor. Oh god.
That orc is sending you to him. Express.
Oh god, you got a front-way ticket to hell. Another thing about the Harlequins is they have a lot of very interesting equipment. They obviously use the standard shuriken weapons and monomolecular edged weapons, but they also have these special pistols where it's essentially a giant crystal in a holster, and what the thing does is it fries your fucking nervous system. That's what it does. It just fries your entire nervous system.
Oh, just a casual hard reset on your body.
No, that shit ain't turning back on. It deletes System 32 basically.
Oh yeah, it bricks you.
it bricks you. That's basically the best way to put it. It just bricks your nervous system.
It forces your body to run 5 million instances of getting rickrolled.
Hey, I see you're trying to... It's like a bunch of Clippies just appear and cloud up your vision before you die. Hey, I see you're trying to fight a Harlequin. Hey, I see you're trying to fight a Harlequin. Some billion of...
Last thing you see is a blue screen.
The main equipment for Harlequins is really interesting because it's really unique. Instead of the like standard sort of flexible Wraithbone armor of most Eldar, they have their hollow suits, which are essentially it's like disruptor camouflage, where it just makes it really hard to see them and focus on them because it turns into a bunch of shifting patterns and can essentially go chameleon stealth. It's really cool. They also have their Agayath, which is like the masks they wear, which have these really like spooky, interesting patterns meant to, you know, terrify and intimidate. And they have their flip belts, which the reason they're so much more like acrobatic and athletic is well training. But also these small anti-grav generators they wear on their waists. But the mainstay of Harlequin armament are the 3 weapons they're most known for. These 3 types of wrist-mounted weapons. The first one is the Harlequin's Kiss, which what it essentially does, it's a small like sharp tube where they essentially give you the fucking jab, the COVID jab, and launch a shitload of monofilament wire into your body. And it just soups your all your organs in 1 second, and then just retracts back. You see it in a book called Path of the Renegade, where a Harlequin just stabs a Cabalite, and the guy just shivers for a second, and then just falls over into a pile of fucking mush because
he is now goo.
He just got souped in his guts. You go, if somebody tells you I'm gonna rearrange your guts, that's a good sign. If a Harlequin says that, you know, that's cause for alarm, if I'm being honest.
I'd say you should leave, but I don't think he's going to give you much chance.
Just know that if a Harlequin says he's going to rearrange your guts, just know it's no longer up to you.
Enjoy your last 5 seconds of life.
There's the Harlequin's Embrace is another one, where it shoots out like it's like a cloud of it's like a net or like a cloud of monofilament wire. That just... Ooh. Have you ever seen the movie Cube?
I have not.
In the movie Cube, a guy gets run through with a grate of razor-sharp wire and just falls over into a bunch of cube chunks.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if that's the right movie, but I have the... Is it almost like lasers in that movie?
No, that's a different... That's from, I think, a Resident Evil movie.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of then. Because I had this very distinct mental image of, like, 30 seconds of, like, my parents were watching it on TV when I was a kid. And I remember walking in like, oh, what are mom and dad watching? And then I saw this dude where it looks like he almost made it, and then...
He just falls apart into squares.
He turns into cubes, and he did not, in fact, make it.
That's literally what happens. That's literally it. Where, like, a cloud appears around you that just retracts into the launcher, and then you just fall apart in, like, a bunch of bouillon cubes.
Ugh.
And there's also the Harlequin's Caress, where what it does is it essentially turns their hand intangible. They reach into your chest and pull out your still beating heart as their hand materializes in one swift motion. And then, not surprisingly, that kills you. Aside from the launchers, they utilize a lot of haywire weaponry. That's really interesting. Which makes them actually a big pain in the ass if you're trying to fight them with vehicles. Which I think that's probably them compensating for the fact that they have none of their own. There's 3 vehicles, which are all more or less the same thing. There's Void Weavers, Star Weavers, and Sky Weavers. Void Weavers are, like, heavily armored. Sky Weavers are, like, just regular jet bikes, and Star Weavers are more like transports. But, like, aside from that, they don't have much for vehicles. But, again, it's fitting to the lore. It fits them in the lore. And yeah, capping this all off, the Harlequins are a sparingly used but incredibly interesting faction. They do have a lot of cool weapons, and not much impact on the story, despite the fact that they literally guard a book detailing essentially how the entire story of 40k might end. They don't do a lot, but they show up now and again, and it's really interesting.
Story of the Eldar.
Yeah, they show up a lot in books regarding the Inquisition, which that's always interesting, and, you know, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Well, that's, like I said, as much as they're so fucking cool, not Space Marines.
No, they're not Space Marines.
Well, alright, well, thank you for having me on. And,
thanks for being on. It has been an absolute treat having you.
Of course.
I'd love to have you on again sometime if I ever if I'm ever having another Eldar episode.
I'm always happy to talk shop about my precious elves.
Hell yeah. Before we go, links to your channel in the description, obviously. Anything you got working on that you'd like to tell the audience about? Any plugs you want to make?
I guess while I'm here, next video will not be Eldar, I'm afraid. Going back to Age of Sigmar. If you'd like to learn about ghosts, next video is going to be about the Night Haunt. Unless that video is already up by the time this goes up, in which case go look at the Night Haunt video. And I don't know what's coming after that because I plan nothing out. I just wake up and go, this is the next video one day, and then that is the next video.
Me. Me. It's a method, I'll give it that much.
It indeed is.
And obviously you are involved in the Lore Crimes podcast, which is absolutely wonderful. Links to that as well in the description.
Of course. Go look at me play the role of the Harlequin, the clown, while everyone else knows what they're talking about.
God, this entire episode's been fucking clown college. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
Of course. Thank you again. And take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed listening, and take care.